Starbucks campaign has been so successful, but that's been a very grassroots campaign. I mean, just basically run by the baristas. And I think that's one reason it's been so successful.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Dave Jamieson is a labor reporter for the Huffington Post, and he subjected himself to union avoidance law firm Littler Mendelson's annual Labor Day report. And so he's going to come on and he's going to tell us all about it. Dave, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. Taking the time from a family camping trip. Is that right?
Yeah, taking the boys camping later today, but we're not pushing off for another hour, so I'm good to go. Appreciate the invite. Glad to be here, and I read the Littler stuff, so you don't have to.
There you go. And I assure you, I did not. So I'm going to be totally relying on your take for it.
Yeah, it's so they do this annual Labor Day report, and you got to keep in mind it's partly a marketing document, right? I mean, they're one of the big union avoidance law firms, and like the others, are always trying to drum up customers. And so you got to take that with a grain of salt. But overall, honestly, it's a pretty helpful report. It kind of runs through the state of the economy for workers right now, and it goes through the changes we're seeing legally and politically right now when it comes to labor law. So this is coming from Littler, not from me. They say that we could be on the cusp of what they say has the potential to be one of the most pro-union eras in modern history. And of course, if you're a union avoidance law firm, that has the potential to bring a lot of business. That phrase could certainly spook a lot of in-house counsel at a lot of companies that are facing union drives. But I think it's accurate too, when you look at sort of the way the winds have shifted and the ways that things are favorable right now to organizing. One is economic. We got this tight labor market, some bargaining power shifting back to workers, but also, politically, legally, we got a Democrat in the White House who's made important changes at the labor board. They're making changes that are more favorable to organizing. And so I think this is a moment for unions right now, and we don't know how long this window will be open, and so they got to make the most of it. And I think that's partly what Littler was saying.
Yeah, well, so you mentioned that this is almost kind of a marketing report. Who is the presumably labor reporters for the Huffington Post, union activists? We're not the target audience, right? Who is the target audience? Who gets this in their email or in their mailbox? Who are the people that this is made for?
This is for employers, right? And probably in particular the lawyers inside employers who. Littler is a company that you go to when you are facing an organizing campaign or you're going to have to bargain a contract. Most companies, if they have in-house labor counsel, most of them are probably not really well equipped to kind of handle an organizing campaign, or if they want to beat it back, of course. Anyone can just remain neutral and bargain with workers. Of course, that's not how it goes with most employers. A lot of them are going to reach for a law firm like Littler. So a document like this is to give employers the rundown and to say, hey, Littler knows what's going on. We got to read on things. If you got workers if you catch something as a drift among your workers, you call us because we're the kind of law firm that's going to help you beat this stuff.
What are the so do they in this report? Do they also advertise the type of services that they would offer to employers who are wanting to beat down uppity workers?
Sure. So what they do in the parts and granted, this is a big management side law firm that deals with all factors of labor law, whether it's, minimum wage and overtime or discrimination, EEOC. So they kind of they address all of that stuff. But as it relates to unions, what they do is they run through the different cases that we might see shifting. You know, the NLRB has a very aggressive general counsel right now, Jennifer Abruzzo. She's pushing through a lot of pro-union changes right now. And what firms like Littler do, and they do this in this document, they also do it on their websites. Morgan Lewis, all these anti-union firms do this. They sort of, break down changes or possible changes to the law. And, there's kind of an insinuation there like, hey, employer, you should be a little concerned about this, right? And maybe you're going to want, one of our partners to talk to about these concerning changes. So, of course, they get into the legal landscape and how it's shifting and sort of cast that as a reason for concern for employers. Again, this is partly a marketing document, and the law firms, they do this with their own blogs too all the time. When you're searching things about organizing, you often just kind of land on these obscure blogs run by union avoidance law firms.
And one of the things that they mention, in addition to the shifting legal landscape, they said that, and this is from your tweet, Littler says the top-down approach to union organizing has, quote, flipped entirely, moving in a less predictable grassroots direction. And I can't tell if, and I can't remember the picture that you screen capped, but you said this new paradigm may be confusing for new employers, so you may want to consider seeking the advice of outside counsel. I thought that was
that was me talking, not Littler, but I was sort of characterizing what I think they were trying to get at. This is, I think, that what you described there from the report, this shift from top down to grassroots, I think that's something that both Littler and union activists would agree on. That we're seeing right now. We see it in kind of these independent efforts that are popping up. Just the one this past week was at Home Depot in Philadelphia. A guy there submitted over 100 cards, not affiliated with a union. I talked to them yesterday. He's hasn't really been in talks about affiliating. And of course, they haven't won an election yet, but this is the kind of thing that Littler's talking about, and that we're really seeing a lot. And so that's one reason the Starbucks campaign has been so successful. Of course, that's a part of Workers United, which is part of SEIU, so it's not like this totally independent thing. But that's been a very grassroots campaign. I mean, just basically run by the baristas. And I think that's one reason it's been so successful. And so, that's what Littler is saying here. Like Joe Blow, whether you're at a Fortune 500 that's non-union for now, or whether you run a small company out there or you franchise a few places, you should be worried because workers are agitating right now, and they're doing it on their own. What Littler said, and I think this is correct in part. They're saying that traditionally, the unions go and do the knocking and try to get workers to start an organizing campaign. They're saying it's kind of the opposite right now. Workers are either doing it on their own or they're actively seeking out unions. And of course, it's always been a mix of both, right? But I think kind of the latter category is really, really popping right now, where we have somebody submit, a viable petition for a Home Depot store, and basically, no established unions even know about it. So that's kind of the terrain we're in right now. And it's, I think, partly why people find it like a really interesting and exciting time.
And so what do you think do you think that this will be effective for Littler in drumming up, because you said this is kind of primarily going to be a marketing document. So is their goal to get employers to preemptively seek their counsel and do union busting meetings before a union even comes in?
Yeah, I think Littler would probably recommend that, and they want to be out there as one of the best known firms in this field, and of course they are. They've become sort of the only firm that sort of regular people might have heard of in this field, and that's because of the Starbucks campaign, right? Those of us who track this stuff, whether journalists or union activists or lawyers, they sort of know who the big firms are. But Littler is a little unique in that they've got offices all over the place, right? They're a bigger firm than than a Morgan Lewis, which is another really well-known union avoidance firm. And I think sort of the network that Littler has and their reach is a big reason that, Starbucks maybe went with them, because Starbucks is dealing with this campaign that's percolating all over the country. And so Littler, I haven't looked at how many lawyers from Littler have been working on the Starbucks campaign lately, but early on, I was going through the filings and there was more than 3 dozen, and this was early this year. Wouldn't be surprised if it was over 100 at this point that have been working on filings. And that's an enormous amount of paperwork. It's an enormous amount of money for a firm like Littler, and it's a huge amount even for Starbucks to be spending. This is an exciting time for unions. I think it's an exciting time for the union avoidance firms too, right? I mean, this is a moment for them. They've got employers that are scared, employers that have never had to deal with unions, employers that have never really faced a viable organizing campaign, and certainly never had to bargain a first contract. Now they're spooked about that, right? I mean, Microsoft recently came out with a statement saying they were kind of like opening the door to neutrality. And what they said was they acknowledged, like, this is coming for us and basically everybody. And so that's the route we're going to go. Other companies are going to take a different tack, and they're going to lean on law firms like Littler. They're going to lean on union avoidance consulting firms that bring the consultants in who are not lawyers usually, but they're going to deliver the scary message. They're going to do the captive audience meetings. This should be a bonanza for that world right now as well.
You mentioned that you think it'll be a bonanza, but I wonder about that, because like you just said, Microsoft is moving towards the direction of at least initial neutrality. They are not. It's not looking like they're making plans to hire union avoidance law firms. And Starbucks Workers United quote tweeted your tweet saying something like, hire Littler Mendelsohn so that you too can lose 80% of your union elections. Do you think that do you think that maybe some people will see this report or see this report in conjunction with seeing everything else that we're seeing and come to the conclusion that it might be better for them just to accept defeat as far as there's going to be a union here? I'm going to just try to get the best deal that I can with a unionized workforce. What do you think the balance is going to be there?
I think there's going to be some of those, but they will certainly be outliers. That's not how most employers respond. And employers just go to incredible lengths to try to keep a union out. I mean, even after years of covering this, I'm continually surprised of how far they're willing to go. And I in talking with a management side lawyer who is really in the trenches on this stuff, he once told me, like, basically, no matter what you think of a company, their morals go out the window when a union comes knocking. So I don't expect that to change. And I don't, this is I think a real moment of opportunity for unions, but keep in mind, I mean, the union density is so low still. We're talking still 6% in the private sector. Even making headway on that, union firms are still going to be really probably in a small minority. So I don't see that changing. I don't see companies' calculations changing. And Littler, they lost. This. I think they've really the union campaign has really beaten them up at Starbucks. I mean, obviously, if your whole strategy was to contain this thing, it's been a failure. But this is a long road here. They've got around not yet 300 stores out of 9,000 unionized, and it's going to be a brutal contract fight. It already is. Starbucks, I'm sure, is willing to starve them out. They're going to take this as far as they can in holding back on a decent contract. And so, even where workers are winning, there's like a really, really long fight ahead of them. And the union avoidance industry, this part of the legal world and the consulting world, it's a big piece of that.
Dave, I appreciate you reading union busting attorneys' reports so that we don't have to, and for coming and telling us about it. Where can folks find your work?
I just go to HuffPost or check me out on Twitter. Handle's Jamieson, Jamieson. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks for the work that you do, and hope you have fun camping this weekend.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.